Good afternoon. We are conducting a special city council meeting, a video and teleconferencing meeting today, February the 24th, 2021, beginning at 2 p.m. Call the meeting to order, and the roll call, please. The City Secretary.
Mayor Gloria Whitehead.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Aurora LeBrun.
Here.
Councilmember Judy Brizendine.
Here.
Councilmember Bob Hambrick. Councilmember Brent Pulley. Councilmember Jeff Rasko.
Here.
Based on the roll call, we do not have a quorum for the special meeting. We require 4 council members. I will wait if it's okay with everyone else here. I'll wait a bit and let's see if we do obtain a quorum before we call for an adjournment. Is that satisfactory?
How long do you wait, Mayor?
I'm going to go call Mom.
We'll just make one phone call, which is protocol, to Bob and to Brent, although we expected Brent would not attend today due to a prior commitment. But we will call Bob at this time.
Okay.
I think it would be appropriate to give him that opportunity and our meeting that opportunity, but then we will, of course, proceed to an adjournment.
Are you on computer or are you on your phone? Okay. I'm standing by Linda right now, so. He's on the computer.
What?
Pardon?
We are in contact with Councilmember Hambrick. He's having a computer issue at the moment. We will see what that's about.
What are the last 4 digits of your phone?
8391.
Okay. We are not seeing you at all.
When I first tried to join, I got a message that the meeting had been canceled. I had to get out and come back again. Then I was able, even the second or third time, I
Well,
was able to get on.
he's actually on at the moment.
Okay, good.
Sees us, but we're having him log off and then log back on, similarly to what you had. Okay, that issue.
That's what I did.
Okay. Do you think that we could have him at least answer the roll call? Or do we need?
Log off and log back on.
Okay, he's going to log off and log back on first.
I don't know if anybody knows this, but you can log on 30 minutes early and it'll just sit there and wait until somebody comes on. So
That's
that
what
you're not at the last minute trying to deal with technical issues. That's what I do. I just log on 30 minutes early and go about my business until I hear somebody come on.
Well, that makes sense. We were all here doing that.
Yeah.
And listen to the annoying ding, ding music.
I turned mine down, muted it, so that I don't have to listen to it.
Yeah, you can totally cut it off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It would have been nice if we could foresee the future and that we were going to have a 78-degree day today, and maybe the camp could have accommodated us. That's an if their water problems were solved. So we're all operating, best we can here.
Okay, that's okay. We're on hold. We're waiting. Oh, that's okay. Don't worry about it.
I think it sounds like Bob will be on.
If necessary, we can mask up and he can come over here and sit with me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or participate by phone and not by.
He can just call in by phone as well. His phone is working.
We didn't, I didn't set it up to yet.
He's not AS, is he?
No. He's gonna be on the computer too.
Jeff offered him to mask up and go over to his house.
He's on
This is when some of that music wouldn't be so bad.
Wait, no, it's 14. No, this isn't.
Yeah, so we don't even see you.
But you know, it added another person up there.
Can he hear us? Well, why don't we just move on with with him on,
But you won't be able to hear him.
We'll put it in the speaker on your phone.
We
we can put him on the speaker. We'll put him on the speaker in your office and we can hear him.
Wow, I got him on the phone anyway.
Okay, on the phone, right.
Yeah, okay, all right. You still there? Okay, all right.
You have him on there? So do you want to take a moment to troubleshoot that anymore, or should we go ahead and have him
Go ahead.
answer the roll, and as long as he can hear us and we can hear him?
Yeah, he hears everything we're saying in here.
Okay,
We just can't see him yet for some reason.
okay. Can you continue to work on that while we move through, or
Go
not?
ahead. Let's go ahead and start.
Okay, so would you, City Secretary, would you call the roll again, please? We'll just start over this, at this point on the roll call.
Mayor Gloria Whiteman,
Here,
Mayor Pro Tem Aurora LeBrun,
Here,
Councilmember Judy Brizendine,
Here.
Councilmember Bob Hambrick,
Here.
Councilmember Brent Pulley, Councilmember Jeff Rasko,
Here.
so we do have a quorum at this time. We will move on in the meeting. We have on the agenda public comments. And are you all hearing a feedback?
That's good.
Yes.
Okay, it's because we're on the phone with Bob, so if that's not too annoying.
Well, what we'll do is I'll leave it off.
While
Let me
others are
listen
speaking.
while everybody's speaking, and then when you ask them to speak, I'll go ahead and put it back on.
That sounds good. Okay. When I'm not speaking through this initial period of the comments, we'll just take him off, and while people are speaking, then we'll put him back on. So he'll be able to participate
for the
Is that
sound.
okay?
for the sound.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, thanks.
Okay. So for public, announcement now for public comments. Linda Land, our city secretary, is monitoring the phone calls, and I'll let her speak to the issue of receiving those who would like to make public comments.
Other participants, if you would like to make a public comment, please raise the hand on your screen. So you should have a place on your screen where you can choose to participate if you would like to. And once you raise your hand on the screen, then we can call on you and unmute you. If you're on your phone, I believe it's star one. Star two. Star two, thank you.
So we will entertain those public comments. Do I have a phone number that I can read into the record of someone who would like to speak?
Yes, I have the last digits 3517, which is Jack Boats. So I will unmute him.
So we are entertaining a public comment from number ending 3517.
Do you hear me?
Jack Bose, yes, we can hear you. You are unmuted. If you would like to proceed.
Yes. I'm Jack Bose, 20 Country Lane. I'm speaking as a private citizen and not as a P&Z commissioner. Just a little bit before I read a prepared statement. I've survived a number of severe weather events, starting with working offshore Grand Isle, Louisiana, kind of a hurricane alley. I survived 2 tornadoes in Huntsville, Alabama that came within 1 mile of our house. Some considerable damage to the city. And then for 18 years, I lived on Galveston Bay, where I survived a number of water events, severe rain, storms, and hurricanes. And now I like to, and the key to survival in all these cases was individual preparation to accommodate power loss, communication disruptions, and water flow. Now I'd like to read my prepared statement, which was transmitted to each of the council members. Prior to permanently moving to Woodcreek 6 years ago, we lived for 18 years near Kemah, which is located on Galveston Bay. We endured a number of severe weather events that included floods, hurricanes, and the most important lesson I learned was to have a comprehensive checklist of to-do items to implement prior to an event, because once the event occurs, you're on your own until the event passes. I've endured power and water outages for weeks, but survived without extreme stress. Our recent event lasted only 4 days or so. When I say you're on your own, I'm not implying that the city staff nor council have vacated the area, but they too are encountering the same problems as the citizens. Limited power to communicate and hazardous road conditions that limit city inspection. Local city authorities are usually clueless to know in real time what is happening, because the utility guys don't know for extended period of time when the systems will become operational. I know from experience that these guys learned a long time ago that any initial comment them in their ass. So I don't know is a routine comment. Granted, better communication between the city and utility companies need to be shored up. But remember, this was a 125-year event, so overreaction will occur unless properly vetted. I suggest a 3-person committee, any more is unwieldy, without any open meeting restriction, be formed to, and I list these items. Number 1, establish timeline of events, including the preparation by the city for the current event that had just occurred. Solicit comments from citizens. Communicate with surrounding cities for pre-post planning and experiences. Develop a pre-post checklist for citizens and city staff. Reaffirm points of contact between the city and utilities. Review proposed utility backup systems. discuss and revise the standard operating procedure for city staff to release information to the public. Number 8, and number 9, number 10, there are other items to be obviously included. I further recommend the committee should be given 60 days to report findings, recommendations to the city. Now, I want to digress a little bit on what I'm about to say. We were prepared. We spent 4 or 5 days preparing for this recent event. We weren't prepared, though, to accommodate 3 couples that showed up at our house and 2 more dogs. But we were able, we satisfied, and it worked fine for 4 days. We survived. We didn't have any water. We had power. That was a blessing. But we also had a backup system with propane. So we were obviously pretty prepared for the event. What was extremely disturbing to me and all the others in that room were occasionally we would go to next door and some would go to some of the side Facebook forums. And the remarks that we were seeing slung back and forth was extremely depressing. I know people are anxious, confused, but to tear into the city staff and the council people, in my opinion, was deplorable. Uncalled for. Absolutely uncalled for. I don't participate in the Facebook forums, and I was sent a copy of a response by a council member, Aurora LeBlanc. I'm not going to read it, Aurora, but I hope it becomes public because it goes in considerable detail on what the city people were doing and what council people were doing. And this was a rebuttal to an individual who angrily threw out allegations. And it was just disturbing to read her responses. That the last sentence was little comments on what we were doing. We're thankful, but the daggers were starting to sting. In other words, she was walking around with daggers. And it just kind of almost broke my heart to have her say something like that, because she has dedicated so many years to this city and distinguished service, and also to the Wembley Valley. And to have people attack her, attack the system, was just beyond words that I forget it. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. But it's normal and acceptable to ask what and when. It's not normal nor acceptable to slam and bash the city staff and council during a period of crisis. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jack. We appreciate you. Is there another person who would like to speak at this time?
Yes, Ray Tilly has his hand up.
All right. Ray Don Tilley, we're recognizing you for your public comments at this time. Are you there and are you unmuted?
I believe so. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for convening this post-event assessment meeting in these days of instant communication, 24/7 shopping and delivery, and viral distribution across social media. We are conditioned not to look ahead. We say, I'll just Google it. But that's no way for us to deal with essential services. And it certainly was no way for us individually to prepare for temporary total breakdown of society last week. I'd say ready is as ready does. So here are some thoughts. They're by no means exhaustive, nor are they necessarily right answers. They're just ideas to consider. We have to imagine what we may need, not just answer the last crisis. I think social media, specific emergency response next-door Facebook groups can centralize information and serve clearinghouse functions. Official notices can be repeated there. Vehicles There was a lot of volunteering going on. Citizens willing to volunteer their personal vehicles could register them. We could have a registry list for planning purposes, update that regularly. Radio communication. We can't assume that we'll have power and internet. I'm sure we have experienced radio hands who could organize two-way radio. County and state liaisons. These are important for official channels, especially FEMA and TDM, but there's often a lag time there, and so they're best for response, recovery, relief, not preparedness. That's more of an individual thing. Neighbor to neighbor. Since this program, the new program, really has no model that I can find, perhaps it could be what we call the an off-the-grid physical network that allows for reliable communications neighbor to neighbor. If each home is a node, then up to 8 direct connections are possible, considering your next door neighbors, your neighbors across the street, your backyard neighbors. These adjacencies ensure physical contact with the neighbors in a structure of overlapping cells, we could call them, for communication, distribution, and sharing. Some of that happened organically, but it would be better if it were organized. So deep freeze, flood, wildfire, hurricane, tornado, chemicals, and attack on our communications network, any of this is very disruptive and very worrisome. The failure of imagination is why we tend to solve the last problem rather than asking what's the worst disruption that could occur, regardless of cause. Our organization ought to be as flat as possible for flexibility and adaptability. To have hierarchy in a single point creates points of failure. So radio communications ability is great, but we can't even rely on centralized organization. For resiliency, we need distributed leadership, a network of nodes rather than a branching tree. I don't subscribe to the explanation that, gosh, it's just not reasonable to expect that our utilities can maintain constant readiness. When your business is essential public health and safety, you cannot not maintain redundancy. Finally, on the matter of a possible emergency plan committee, let me recommend some strong individuals who've been vetted and are working in public to represent citizens and businesses across the city. We can assemble some of the great volunteers from last week as an ad hoc committee to support them, but I believe the Woodcreek Comprehensive Plan Committee can add the structure for an emergency plan to its ongoing charge, and I make that recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray Don. We appreciate your comments. City Secretary, is there another speaker?
So far, I do not have another speaker. If you would like to speak, please push *2 if you're using a phone, or indicate it if you're using the computer. Yes, so I have Chris Stockdale.
Okay, so I do need to add Chris Stockdale. I'm recognizing you at this time. I do have just a quick question for you. Are you there?
He needs to unmute himself.
You need to unmute yourself, please. Chris Stockdale.
So he is unmuted on our end, but he's still muted on his end.
You are unmuted on our end. You are still muted on yours. Can you unmute yourself, please? Chris Stockdale. We can try to come back to Chris in a moment. Are there any other hands up at this time to speak?
No, not at this time.
Not at this time. I do have several written comments that I'll go ahead and begin to read some of the written comments while we see if there are other, between each of the readings, I will see if there are any others who are waiting to speak so that we can certainly get those on. Did you have someone else who wanted to speak first?
No,
Okay, so I have a letter from Cap Horning. I'm looking for an address. Resident Cap Horning. This is a comment to be read at the city council meeting today on 2/24. This letter is an observation, not an indictment. It is not perfect nor PC, so I'll apologize up front to any of you who do not deserve criticism. I recognize that I am not the man in the arena. Last week, Texas came within minutes, if not seconds, from a statewide grid failure. A blackout of that magnitude would have required a complex process called a black start. The fix would have required weeks or months to remedy, i.e., no electricity for weeks or months. Global warming is a fact that will most likely lead to future extreme cold or hot weather events and possible rolling blackouts. Additionally, the threat of Cat 5 hurricane hitting the Gulf Coast 150 miles away and slamming into Wimberley Woodcreek as a Cat 3 with accompanying tornadoes is real, with the potential of an existential crisis. The City of Woodcreek water outage, week of February 14, 2021, was nearly 100% preventable, even with the Texas power grid down. Generators, pipes, valves are all mechanical devices and systems that can be hardened and or made redundant to withstand weather conditions like we experienced these last few days. The technology has been around for decades. Water is even more essential than electricity and demands reliability for convenience and safety. We were glad that we witnessed people offering to help and helping their neighbors. The emergency conditions we experience bring people together. Everyone wants to help, even if they are unable. Neighbor helping neighbor, like it used to be in Woodcreek. Are we?
We lost a lot of people.
We did.
We lost.
The only one here.
Bob is still here.
Yeah, Bob is actually now, so he's there.
Okay, good.
But we did.
I'll just continue.
Second. We lost, Judy
Jeff.
and Jeff.
Well, we need them back.
Yes.
We'll take a slight recess here to get 2 council members back online. We've lost them. Bob is on
He's on.
with our audio, but we've lost Jeff and Judy. And did we also have others?
We lost,
On phones?
seven participants that were just listening.
Okay. So should I make an announcement for them to try to call
Well,
back?
Yeah, but we don't know if
Yeah.
there's one.
All right, we'll just have to see if we have
Yeah.
have our quorum.
Well, let's see if we can do that.
I need to get our 2 council.
The ones we lost are all over on that part of the city.
It looks like it's all on one side of the city. Maybe it's another power issue, obviously.
Hello. Okay, so everybody, we lost Jeff too, so we lost, 7 participants. Judy just lost internet and power.
No.
So Judy just lost, for those of you who are on, I'll just update
Yeah,
you
we'll come back up. Are you getting power back?
that Judy and
Okay, because
Jeff have
Danny's
lost
back on
power
now.
and some are coming back on. They lost power, cell, and internet for a moment here.
You wanna call in?
So we're going to see if we can get them
Okay.
back.
Just call in, but we got Bob on telephone too right now, so we just got my Jeff. All right, thanks.
I would say that we're obviously still having internet and electrical issues throughout the city.
Mhm.
Their dish turned off over the last bit.
It's interesting to look at the list of people who are still on, at least the ones whose names are on, they're on this side of the city.
Yep.
They're, they're, I would say, because like Jack's gone, and he's, Country Lane.
Yes. There doesn't seem, this would be very interesting for us to try to actually get information on why or how different parts of the city, different houses across from each other, kind of a rhyme and no rhythm or randomness, to the power.
Okay, we've got
Who?
Judy back on.
Judy called in, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just texted Jeff.
This is Bob. One of the things that I was thinking is I would love to study the schematics for both water and electricity to see what those circuits and what those lines look like, so we can at least have an idea, because it seems like there's no rhyme or reason sometimes.
Well, that's true. I'm just wondering if we should make an effort to continue, if we can get our council members.
Okay, we're just missing Jeff right now.
Okay,
just
where's
texted him.
Judy?
Judy's.
I'm in. I'm
You're
in.
on. Okay, great, Judy. We're missing Jeff.
Okay, Jeff. He hasn't come. Okay, Jack just said his internet phone is down at their place.
Okay, we're experiencing internet and phone service outages randomly throughout the city. So I really feel like if it might not be all right if it's all right with you all.
Well, let's see if we can get Jeff back,
Okay,
because they'll still be recorded.
okay, good. We can try to get our quorum here, and I can continue to read comments that would be in the record.
They got
And-
electricity and the backup on that side. Don't worry.
But I really would not feel comfortable reading and into records without our quorum.
No, you can't. We got,
Right.
we just got to pick up one person now.
Of course, all of these comments have been filed with the city and will be made a
Okay,
record
we're
of
back.
the city.
Yeah, Councilmember Rasko, are you back?
As Jeff, I'm back. My internet apparently just went down.
Okay, so we have, do you want to call roll again, please?
Would you please call the roll? I'm trying to make sure we have a quorum, Jeff and Judy and Bob. So we only see Aurora at the moment, but we hear the rest of you. So let's do a roll call at this time. It is 2:31
Mayor Gloria Whiteman,
here.
Mayor Pro Tem Aurora LeBrun,
Here,
Councilmember Judy Brizendine,
Here.
Councilmember Bob Hamburg,
Here,
Councilmember Brent Pulley, Councilmember Jeff Rasko,
here.
So we have a quorum to continue due to a power and internet and electric outage, and we'll continue. I was reading into the record, public comments received in writing to be read, and I want to ask City Secretary first if we have anyone on the line who would like to speak.
no, just your hand raised. If you did want to speak at this time, either indicate that with your computer screen or put a *2 if you are calling from a phone.
So we are taking the opportunity to reach out to anyone who was calling in who would like to speak. We have no hands raised at this time.
No.
So I'll continue. I was reading a letter from Kat Horning. I believe I've had most of it entered into the record reading, but I will continue. I've made a mark of where I left off. He continues, we were glad that we witnessed people offering to help and helping their neighbors. The emergency conditions we experience bring people together. Everyone wants to help, even if they are unable. Neighbors helping neighbor, like it used to be in Woodcreek. I was, however, extremely disappointed by the lack of information coming from the city. It took a private citizen, he was not a city official, who had the initiative to drive up to City Hall and talk to the AT technicians on site to find out what was happening, and then to report it. A little information, in this case a lot, goes a long way to abating frustration and anger. A big shout out to Cody Abney for the badly needed intel, and to Jason Myers, Aqua Texas, for working through the night in freezing conditions to get us water, and to AT&T for providing continuous LTE high-speed cellular data. What we got from the city, for the most part, was lip service, cut and paste, and a few blurbs about water availability at City Hall. This was our second wake-up call as to the fragility of our water supply system. Now is the time to put measures into place so that a water outage is beyond excuses and never, ever happens again. Safety and environment should not just be on the agenda, it should be the agenda. Just imagine if we had experienced a house fire in Woodcreek, one that was so intense it began to jump to nearby trees and to other houses, and with no water. And we have a letter from Deborah Hines. I would like to submit the following to be read as public comments. First, thank you all for the hard work you each put in last week. I know the disaster happened to you and your families as well, and you did the best you could with what you had available. I would like to request the city consider implementing 2 new items moving forward. 1, will the city please install a phone call and text message automated alert system? All schools use these, and so does the city of Austin. This would be used in addition to the current email blast. To get the citizen phone numbers, we would contract with PEC and/or Aqua Texas for their records and have people sign up on our city website as well. With an elderly population, phone calls really are the best way to reach people besides knocking on doors. In addition, with the internet out and limited cell battery, a quick text would have gone a long way in helping many stay calm. 2, in addition, I need to strongly recommend an official city social media account to disseminate information. People go there for help, and it would be prudent for the city to take charge of that communication in a unified manner that doesn't fall on city council members or other non-paid citizens to handle individually. Posts on Nextdoor, Facebook, and Twitter about our trash service, boil water notices, etc., should be coming directly from a paid member of the city staff. Social media is a part of life now, and as we just saw last week, it played a crucial role in getting people the help they needed. Please stop avoiding it. Learn how to use it and make it work for us. If you need or want help with either of these items, I'm happy to volunteer my time in setting these up. Thank you for your time. And I have a letter from Nancy Brittner, former Mayor Pro Tem and council member. Dear Mayor, staff, Aurora, Judy, Bob, and Jeff, I can't tell you how much I appreciate all you did for our community during Snowvid. It was so heartwarming to see you all working together. What a great job you did with water distribution, social media information, general information through e-blasts and our text blasts, and taking care of all our citizens. It shows your dedication and commitment to our citizens. Thank you again, Nancy Brittner. I have a letter from Chris Stockdale. I saw that he came on to speak earlier, so I wanted to make sure that if he wants to speak, we have him speak rather than I read. So
We see he is online, so.
can we call him to see if he wants to speak?
I have unmuted him. He has not raised his hand. He would need to unmute himself.
Okay, so can he hear us to ask him?
Yes.
Yes, so if Chris Stockdale, if you would like to unmute yourself and speak, we'll give you that opportunity to do that. If not, I'm going to go ahead and read Chris Stockdale's letter. So let me see if he wants to speak. We'll give him a moment to unmute. All right, I'm going to go forward with Chris Stockdale's statement. Good morning. I am relieved, like many, that we are now on the remediation and recovery portion of what was a significant weather event. I, like many citizens, have questions, but I will keep it to the most pressing. 1, the extreme cold, snow, and ice was forecast for many days in advance. What specific preparations and precautions did the city, the emergency management coordinator, I believe this is the mayor or her designated representatives, take prior to the weather hitting? Given that this event, like many other weather-related events, knocked out power, water supply, and people's ability to stay warm and dry, which are known factors, why was there not a reserve of potable water for residents? A city of 1,700 people requires approximately 1,500 gallons per day for drinking. B, a clear, concise communication of any plan that the city has in place for such events. It appears to be very reactionary versus proactive, which is the whole purpose of having emergency planning in place. C, a space for residents to be able to stay warm. This is also something that would be found in a city's emergency plan, typically known as warming shelters. 2, our current water contract with Aqua has in place a provision for maintaining hydrant pressure for fire suppression needs. If we would have had a house fire, highly likely when so many people are having to utilize their fireplaces to stay warm, it would have been all but impossible for the fire department to suppress such a fire without the water available, and likely to spread to other properties. In rural settings, fire departments utilize a water shuttle system, shipping water from a remote location and dropping it into tanks at the scene. Given the road conditions, this would have been all but impossible. We were lucky. So the question is, why has Aqua not been held accountable to having a fixed generator on location at the water tower for just such emergencies? And what is the city going to do to ensure Aqua is forced to comply with the contract in place? While I do not know the exact requirements for such a generator, I am aware that a 150 kW 3-phase commercial generator could be purchased for approximately $30,000. The amount I believe we spent on the city website. If this number is inaccurate, please advise how much the website cost. What specific steps and measures is the city going to take to prevent this from happening in the future? I have many more questions, but these are the main ones at this point in time. Sincerely, Chris Stockdale, a concerned resident. And that is all. These are all that I have on statements to be read. What is it, Lynn? At a different time. From residents, from citizens. And so unless we have any other citizen public comments at this time, I'm going to move to the regular agenda. I'm testing again just to see that we have Judy, Jeff, and Bob. You can hear us?
Mhm. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Bob, yes.
Yes. And Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we'll take the regular agenda, item 1, discussion and take appropriate action on a resolution continuing the declaration of disaster for the city of Woodcreek. Severe freezing weather and power outages. And in your packet, we do have the city of Woodcreek disaster declaration resolution. I will not read the entire resolution, but it extends the emergency resolution that I've signed that is expiring today. And this allows us to continue with ratification by the city council for an indefinite period in the future. So do I have,
I make a
Mayor,
motion that we continue.
I have a motion, Councilmember Hambrick, a
I
second,
second that motion.
Councilmember Brizendine. So all those, is there discussion about this resolution? There being no discussion, we'll call the question. And City Secretary will call the roll.
Can we restate the motion? I didn't hear that.
This is to extend the City of Woodcreek disaster declaration resolution, and we're extending it for an indefinite period.
Councilmember Hambrick,
Yeah, aye.
Councilmember Brizendine,
Aye.
Councilmember Rasko,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun,
Aye.
Motion passes. We will go to item 2 on our agenda, review and discussion on events and responses due to severe freezing weather and power outages. And what I had asked the manager to express to each council member was if you could each provide your comments as part of discussion on your experiences and your observations as we went through this freezing event. And I do not hesitate to call it snowvid. So, Jeff,
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Rasko, would you like to begin?
I do have a question. I know that Councilmember Pulley sent in a letter that he asked to be read. Are we going to do that?
Absolutely. I've reviewed Councilmember Pulley's comments, and he submitted those as a council member. And so I plan to read his comments as in this portion of our agenda.
That's perfect. I was just wondering because when it didn't
Yes.
come up in the public comments. Thank you very much,
Yes.
Mayor.
You're welcome. And I was going to bring that out when we got on to this agenda, that we do have his comments, and he'll have his opportunity to participate in this process.
Yeah, he had just said that he was sorry that he was tied up in court and wasn't able to attend. So my experience with the Snowmageddon, Deep Freeze 21, when it was obvious that it was going to get brutally cold, and we did like so many others, we started getting prepared for whatever we thought might happen. I think it was Jack Bowes where I first saw somebody post that said, hey, you ought to fill your bathtub. So of course we went in and filled the bathtub, and then, our immediate concern was to reach out to our family and immediate neighbors and friends in town to try to provide as much advice as we could get, because everything was still, pretty good on Friday, Saturday, and into Sunday. First emails that started going out, I think like Emma Davenport was online and just was saying that she didn't use television, so it was great to see the chatter on social media. So as much as I dislike being in that format, I'm not a social media type person, really, honestly. I said, okay, well, I got to get out of my comfort zone and see what can be done. So I just monitored the two Woodcreek Facebook pages, next door, texts and emails, as best I could, and tried to respond, knowing that as the weather got worse and worse, that we probably would lose power. It didn't occur to me immediately that water was involved, but then we started seeing the announcements that Aqua Texas was saying that as power started going out, that water would start going out. So it was clearly starting to get to emergency level. So I guess some of the first pieces on social media that I saw were, Pat Rawlings sent out the poll on Nextdoor for who's got water, which hit over 300 responses. Chris Stockdale, started sending out emails and social media posts that were quite enlightening. He's got some definite expertise on this. And then Cody Abney started showing up and saying, hey, I can go out and help people. If you've got a pipe done, I've got a big truck and I'll be there. And he certainly was. And so it was just like sort of one kind of hero after another stepping up to help neighbors when we knew that we were not able to get to every citizen in town. So I like everybody else, we went to our neighbors across the street and across the way and just tried to make sure everybody was okay. It was scary. People were really quite frightened. I was honestly afraid that we were going to, after Monday and Tuesday, that we were going to find people in their homes that didn't make it because they hadn't had power for several days. And heard of stories of temperatures inside the house in the 30s, and that's just it was spooky. And it did take us a while to really sort of get mobilized and get going, but because we had such good neighbors reaching out, we did it. Now, I probably jumped the gun a little bit, but taking Jack Bose's advice, I reached out, to some of the people that I'd already known and some that I hadn't known, and just said, you got some really great ideas. Let's start putting them together in one place as part of the Neighbor to Neighbor program. And see what we can do to get some notes together that we can come back to ultimately the city council with some ideas on an emergency plan that would include in fact a lot of the stuff that Deborah Hines mentioned. So everybody's sort of on the same wavelength. I do have basically just a citizens think tank, Cody and Pat and Chris and Ray Don that have shared their notes and have been reaching out for ideas that we can bring to some sort of an emergency plan that would be available for distribution to homes on paper, sort of like what we did with the door hangers, so that it's right there on the website. But the goal is to have a plan in place because it may not be another snowmageddon like this one, but it's quite likely. But it could be floods or anything else, and it all works. And we've got an ordinance that sort of outlines the emergency structure but nowhere could we find an actual emergency plan that says this is what is going to be done and who's going to do it. But we have resources. The city has the mule. We've got people in town that have 4-wheel drive trucks that can drive across Antarctica. I think that if we could just get our neighbor to neighbor program working and just be part of it, where people are raising their hands and saying, oh yeah, I can do this and I can do this. And like what Ray Don was saying, I'll be the center point for this part of my block. Then, we can take something like this in the future, and as Jack Bowes mentioned, be able to get through it relatively unscathed. And so that's what I've been working on.
Excellent. And each of you can certainly take some time or note and come back if you'd like to address something that someone else mentioned. Just let's go and make sure every one of you all get to discuss your experiences and observations. So, Councilmember Hambrick, would you like to go next?
Sure. I am a little embarrassed to say that I never lost power, and I don't know why, but I think that it's an important thing to know exactly where these different areas are as they're going out and whether they're coming back and when they're coming back. As far as the preparation for power, to have a generator is a smart thing, whether it's a flood or a tornado or snowmageddon, doesn't matter what, having that in your own home so that you can at least have a little bit of power can be good. As far as Aqua is concerned, the fact that they lost power and didn't have power up for quite some time so that they could refill the water tower tank, I have a hard time understanding just why that happened, and I think that that they have to address that because it's an absolute necessity. People don't understand, and Chris Stockdale did a great job of the picture that he put on next door. Very basic, but that's all there is to it. It's a real basic system. If there's water in the tank, 150 feet up, then we're going to have pressure. If there's no water, then we have no pressure. And everybody, if they use it at once, it will not work because it's constantly being drained and it's not being filled. And like he said, and several others said, the danger of a fire, we're helpless if we don't have that. So we have to have some sort of fire suppression system in order to be safe in that area. If we're not doing that, then and that's really why we pay Aqua, is to be able to have that fire suppression and expect water to come out of the hydrant when we want it to. Otherwise, we're ending up with tanker trucks, and it may be late. They may not even be able to make it in because of the snow or ice. So that's something that we need to look at and seriously consider. As far as helping our neighbors, we're talking about a neighbor-to-neighbor program, and it should be a program, but it should end up being a culture, something that we do automatically. We start calling people our neighbors, people that we know across town, and if we're doing that, then we're keeping our finger, and this is not just council people, it's citizens, all citizens. If they're calling each other and they know their neighbor well enough, I'm embarrassed to say that there's one neighbor that I don't know and I need to go and talk to him because the people that are, especially the older folks, they may not do internet. They don't do social media in some cases, and we need to be able to reach every single one, whether it's walking over to their house and allowing them or asking them to open the door, because sometimes they won't. We need them to be able to do that. So our neighbor to neighbor, as far as knowing people's phone numbers, knowing their email addresses, and those sorts of things, is very important. And once we get to that point, I think we'll be much better off. All the things that I've heard are good and important, and we need to be ready for the next time. And that means stretching our imaginations to a point where we can just do that. and we're on board and we're ready. As far as the generator, for instance, for Aqua, needs to be tested regularly and put under load so that it can be seen that it works. If that doesn't happen, then if we're not maintaining it, then it may as well just be useless. So I do appreciate all the response that I saw. Several people stepped up and did an amazing job, and including Jason from Aqua. He did everything that he possibly could. And even with that, knowing where all the water lines are is very difficult unless we go back and look at the lines. But I'm glad we got through it. This is an important learning experience. We need to learn from it. That's all there is to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. I think that I'll go ahead and read the statement from Councilmember Pulley at this juncture. I'm sorry I could not be here today. However, I did want to comment. I think we should look at this meeting as being an after-action review. This process is utilized by the U.S. military and other successful organizations after an event to determine what went right, what went wrong, what can be done better the next time. It's not a scalp hunting affair, and it certainly is not a time for self-congratulatory nonsense so common with politicians. It's a time to listen to each other and to the citizens and to learn how to improve. What went well? It was good to see people pull together and help each other so much. Much of this was facilitated by social media or word of mouth. This was wonderful. What we need to review: backup power. First, note that this critique is directed at Aqua management and not the people on the ground. Under our ordinances, 51.01C1, Aqua must maintain sufficient water flow for fire suppression. If we had a fire during this, could we have fought it? Obviously not. Aqua is also required under 52.02E of our ordinances to have backup power available at all times to instantaneously restore water service in the event of an interruption. This is in addition to the requirements of TCEQ codified by the Texas Administrative Code, Section 290.46 and 290.47. Did Aqua comply with these requirements? If not, what is the city going to do to ensure compliance? Boil water notices. The water issue quickly changed from a loss of water pressure to a complete stoppage or interruption. But the system would intermittently ooze some water flow, which was almost certainly contaminated due to the interruption. Nonetheless, Aqua and the city waited days to issue a boil water notice, even after other local systems had long since done so. This delay could have caused serious issues for elderly or immune-compromised folks who unknowingly drank the contaminated water. We shouldn't let Aqua drag their feet on boil water notices in the future. This can hurt people. Communication, the water issue. The city's communications came mainly from some of the council members and at times the city manager. These efforts were valiant, but the information was sporadic, sometimes contradictory, and sometimes consisted of a cut and paste entry or other information already available. We should have a single, well-informed communication representative in these situations. Communication from Aqua management was non-existent or simply did not flow to the citizens. Those who called Aqua in Pennsylvania sat on hold for 30 minutes or more, only to be told they had no record of any outage in Woodcreek. Moreover, hundreds of inquiries and comments on local social media showed that folks were concerned stressed, and then angry with basic questions of what is wrong, what is being done, and what is the estimated time that it will get fixed. Salvation came only when a couple of private citizens, Chris and Cody, simply stopped by the water tower next to City Hall and asked questions, and then passed that good information on to the community. Once folks understood what was going on and that Jason was working his head off to fix it, people relaxed. But this should have come from city leadership and Aqua management. The city's response is that this, quote, was a coordinated level of communication that worked flawlessly. This is not only laughable, but it ignores the legitimate concerns of the ratepayers and taxpayers. Further, those that have spoken up have been met with a wall of derision and ridicule from the city that is unprofessional and childish. Now is the time to listen. Now is the time to learn. Remember always, we work for the taxpayers. So we can go on. Councilmember Brizendine, would you like to go next? I'm saving our pro tem for last and manager to wrap up and then to hear your other comments.
Have we heard from Councilmember LeBrun?
Councilmember LeBrun is going to speak after you.
Oh, okay. I just didn't know if I missed it. I'm sorry.
No, ma'am.
I like Bob, was one of the few who did not lose power throughout the whole ordeal. However, I was very well prepared. I grew up in the country where we had rural electric power, were many miles from our neighbors, and lived on a well. So I know the things that you have to do to prepare for these kind of events and was prepared for them. I would like to address a couple of things. I felt like I worked hard to do what I could as a volunteer, but also as a representative of the city. But I would like to address what is quantifiable readiness. I noticed that Chris Stockdale said that we should have a minimum of 1,500 gallons of water per day. So we had 5 days, essentially, that's 6,000 gallons of water. I'm not sure that that's quantifiable readiness. I feel like citizens perhaps need a little better education on how to prepare for these events so that they're a little more self-sufficient. I don't think that we can hold the city, the state, the county, nor the federal government reliable on natural acts of God. I think that we all have to understand that we have a first right of responsibility and then reach out for the bigger picture. I also would like to address some of the comments made about why we were not doing social media, email, text messaging, phone messaging, radio, TV spots, social media, etc. And quite honestly, most of those things require power, which not only were we out of power and without internet, so was the city. I didn't even have cell service, even though I had all my data. Evidently, the cell servers were down. Then I would also like to address the notice. I noticed that everyone praised Cody and Chris Stockdale. I do praise them for being able to get that information. However, I don't know that citizens are aware there is a much different standard for official notice coming out of City Hall than there is for private information. So to walk down there and talk to a paid employee rather than getting an official notice from Aqua Texas certainly is not the proper official notice coming out of City Hall. And last, I would like to say that I believe that all of us were not just stressed, but concerned. I believe I can speak for all of the city council, the staff, and the mayor in saying that we all were concerned. I have four-wheel drive vehicle, and I got out and I delivered things to people. I did what I could do, and I'm 70 years old. I know that some of the residents of our city that are 40 years old don't have the knowledge to prepare for this that I do because they've not lived as long. But I do feel like that ridiculing and criticizing what was done is not the right way to address this issue. I think moving forward, we need to listen. We do need to learn, and I agree with Council Member Pulley very rarely, but I do agree with his statement. Now is our time to listen and learn. Now is our time to not only listen to people's experiences, good and bad, but we need to grow from this. The city staff needs to grow, the city council needs to grow, and the citizens need to grow. Thank you for your time, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Brizendine. So Mayor Pro Tem LeBron, would you
Yeah.
like to have your comments and experiences and observations, please?
Okay, yes, I would like to. I would like to go back a little bit to Jack Bowles' statement at the beginning of this meeting and his experience having lived in Galveston. Emergency preparedness is good, and I think that we need to go back and review and possibly strengthen our plans. This was an event that I, in 35 years that I have lived in Woodcreek, have never experienced, even though we have had our freezes and several bad winters and, of course, very hot summers. There are sometimes I remember preparing dutifully for Ike and Harvey, hurricanes that come to Texas more regularly than ice storms, and yet in still losing 60% of my offices in Harris County. Sometimes you cannot plan for the wrath of Mother Nature. I'm not excusing it. We should plan. I think that there are several things. I have listened to the plans, and maybe the bureaucrat in me has some concerns. The neighbor-to-neighbor approach is very good. We used it in my neighborhood and called each other. The using social media, text messages, we still have a significant percentage of our population that may not be accessing those. And if they have their telephone service with Time Warner, telephone service was gone. I still maintain that my landline that I got when I moved here in 1985, but that was not available. The only thing I had left in my home was my cell phone, and thanks you, Verizon, for keeping it up throughout the emergency. Outages. BC has a very good system that shows where the outages are. And initially you could tell that there were meters that were on within Woodcreek and there were meters that were off, no explanation given. At some point, even that was lost. BC could not maintain its reporting systems or its online systems efficiently. And in fact, were providing wrong information because of computer issues. So this affected BC, affected Aqua Texas, affected others in the area. We are the city of Woodcreek, but we're also part of the Wimberley Valley. The suggestion that we maintain a place in the city of Woodcreek as a warm area as a warming station is a good suggestion. In the past, when we have had disasters in the valley, we have had central location. And part of my presence on social media was to notify our citizens that water, food, and warming stations were available in 2 of our churches, since not the community center this time because it also lost power. So we need to think Woodcreek, but we also need to realize that we're small. We're part of the valley, the county. We need to make our emergency preparedness plan one that recognizes that our resources are limited and that we have to depend sometimes on other groups outside the city of Woodcreek. I lost power. I lost water. I was thankful to a friend that warned me to save water, because she said, when the power goes off, your water is going to go off. And I kind of went, where is this related? How does this work? But I listened and I did save some water, and I'm glad I did. And this is, it was difficult. It was difficult. We never had power outages. I did have the power go. The longest was 7 hours, and it was cold and it was uncomfortable, but we did live through it. Neighbor to Neighbor is a great program, and I commend Councilmember Hambrick for bringing it to the table as a formal program. And I was very impressed with the people in my neighborhood and beyond, how they went and helped their neighbors, how they talked to each other, how they made sure everybody was safe. So that was great. Aqua, I was told on Sunday when we were distributing water, I'm always hard on them. And I told them I'm not hard on the local people. I recognize their value, and I recognize they are in a hard position. They have to respond to corporate, they have to respond to us. But they should, the backup is an issue, and I think I'm confident the mayor and the rest of us will address it. I do want to say that when we're angry, sometimes we react and attack other people. No, it wasn't perfect. But no, some of the comments, particularly some pretty, I would say, impolite, let me use that phrase, comments, and some of them bordering on cruel, that were made were not justified. And I hope that we learn to be better as citizens and as residents and as neighbors, and appreciate and understand. I was hurt, even though they were not directed at me personally. And I don't want to make this a defense of Mr. Lewis, but he has the fortunate circumstance of being my neighbor. He lives on my street, and which is a privilege for him. But as such, I can observe.
I used to live next door.
I can observe what he's went through. One of my warmest rooms is my office that faces the street, and I thoroughly enjoy it because I watch the birds. And I was there. I saw the hours that he was working, the minute that he could get on the road, he was on the road, and how hard he was working. Could he have done more? Maybe, but take into account that he was without power, without internet, and he and I were communicating through the only means we had, which was our cell phones, while the mayor could not even do that because she had lost power for extended period of time, and her cell phone died until Councilmember Brisendine provided her a pack to reboot it. So thank you for everyone who worked so very hard. And I am sorry that it wasn't as good as you feel it could have been. But I think that we were very fortunate to live in Woodcreek. And I know this from the personal experiences of my own daughter and one of my best friends in Austin. As of today, my daughter does not have water. As of today, my best friend does not have a home. It collapsed around him, and he has to carry buckets of water from his neighbor to be able to take care of himself and his pets. So it was hard, it was difficult, but we were blessed to be in Woodcreek. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you. That was great. So I would like to allow Manager Lewis an opportunity to just discuss observations and experiences as well. You have the floor.
All right. I'm not going, every one of the council members covered a lot of the points that I was going to cover. Everybody hear me okay? Sure. So basically, I was in contact as the city manager directly with Aqua staff members, PEC staff members, and the city has been provided direct lines to certain individuals so that we knew exactly what was going on. But that goes back to also, even though city staff knew what was going on, that unless it was an official statement, as Councilmember Bridget, I believe, said, that we cannot issue what we know is going on unless it's been approved by those utilities. And so that's why, there's a lack of getting word out, because as soon as we had received a notice from any of the utilities, we went ahead and issued the notices that they had. Also, there was a comment about the emergency planning, that in 2018, Hayes County updated our local emergency operations plan, of which Woodcreek is part of. We sat through several meetings of it, several hours of it, just trying to make sure that we did have knowledge about what resources were available. During that time period, I was reaching out to Commissioner Shell, and he contacted also emergency management directly, and that was a tie there that we were able to get water from Hayes County. We got a small amount of water from Aqua. We got, basically 3 times we had Hayes County, the commissioner, delivered water to the city. And then also we had the emergency management coordinator from Dripping Springs delivering water for us through Hayes County. And then Aqua, they finally were able to get over 2,400 gallon bottles of water that actually came from Arkansas. And that's what was distributed on that day on Sunday. The whole thing is that we found out when we have a total breakdown in our infrastructure that it was hard to communicate. As Mayor Pro Tem LeBrun said, I lived right down the street from her. She knew when I had electricity back. That's when we were starting to generate as many emails and stuff as we could to try to update our systems. And with her help, her assistance, and also Councilmember Rasco's, we got it out on the social media too. We do have the text messaging, which it goes out every time we can get service again. And we just need more citizens to sign up on it. That way we can get these official notices. I'm looking at my notes over here. It was commented that the mayor is actually the emergency management director, but through our agreements with Hayes County, we have them as our coordinator. So that will be looked into to see if we can do anything there. Let's see here. I'm looking at all these notes.
The meeting that we're having with the county.
Yeah,
You
we
might
will
bring
be
that up.
attending a follow-up meeting in 2 weeks, I believe.
Yes.
It'll be about what happened in each one of the communities. So we will be attending that to discuss what happened. The thing is, I even found out that we knew everyone was having the same situation all across the county, basically across the state. But even the dispatch from Hayes County was, they actually had water lines break there too. So they had moved to a different location. So, it was one of these major storms that, everything happened, the infrastructure, again, was not there to support everything. Aqua Texas, they did have a generator that was brought over to try to restore power. And so they were ready with their generator. So that will be addressed at a later time about what happened there. I think that's about it. Let's Mayor, you have any questions or anything?
No, not questions. I just am going to say that I don't have a problem with being criticized for being over congratulatory to our citizens and to our council, to our utility workers on the ground. I will congratulate all of you for as long as I live, having witnessed one of the worst storms that I've ever been really living through and coming out fine. We're resilient people, and we can handle what comes to us, but no water, no electric, cold. It was a very difficult time in different parts of our cities, talking about experiences and observations to stay on our theme. Many of us have had, as Councilmember LeBron has, and Councilmember Brizendine specifically, many years of emergency situations in life and in general. And we learned to prepare. And we knew for a good week or so that we were going to have cold weather. We knew we were going to have issues to prepare. And I think that individually, it's our responsibility to start to take care of our own home and our families and our neighbors as the best we can. So again, the unprecedented storm and not being able to actually have the communication of cell phones and internet service and telephone, we did not have services that we would normally have. That is not a breakdown of our city's management or our city's emergency planning. That's just the circumstances of a storm. And we have to look at it as and what it is, not what we were unhappy about. So in my feelings, I'm congratulating all of our citizens who did, without a formal program, for a neighbor to neighbor, having just the council pass that resolution to create a neighbor to neighbor less than a month ago, but not having a formal program, I think we pretty well showed what a neighbor to neighbor program looks like. Mm-hmm. Because on every street, the neighbors I know personally reached out, got telephone numbers, and where they could communicate, if not knocking on a door, which I will say, many of our council members and citizens knocked on doors and went out and did not wait when they couldn't get a phone call back, because obviously no telephones, but they went to the homes. Neighbor to neighbor was a success without having a formal program. Councilmember Brizendine, and talk a little bit, if you don't mind, just about how you all implemented on the spur, on the cuff of it all, the customer service element to identify the outages and to communicate that to staff, to Manager Lewis for Aqua.
Well, I got on next door and I started writing down the addresses, and I called Brenton, or I text Brenton a message that I was going to compile a list, and then I started reaching out one by one to those people. Bob Hambrick and I got in a golf cart on Thursday, and we literally drove the city looking for busted pipes and got Aqua Texas to come turn off the water mains. at a number of houses where there was no one home and water was just spewing everywhere. And then Brenton put together a spreadsheet of the houses that did not have water still that I had worked at compiling. And then I went over and met, there were 5 houses on Augusta Lane and 3 houses on Brook Meadow that claimed not to have water even after everything was up and running. I personally went over there and helped them locate their shutoff, helped them depressurize their system. I took hot coffee and gallons of water to them, helped them get their water turned back on, gave them Cody's number to get their busted pipes fixed. And, you know, I worked 6 hours one day and 7 hours the next, going door to door. And I felt like I did my part, and I hoped that everybody else was working equally as hard, because I feel like when a crisis hits, we all have to chip in and do what we can do.
Well, and I also need to mention that we at the city had created a door hanger, which was a physical something in the citizen's hand, that the resources, we had talked about doing this for quite some time. It was fortuitous that we had the printing done. And in fact, a third of the city, we had 900 of these door hangers, and a little less than a third of the city had already been delivered, and these had been distributed right before the Saturday, right before the storm. But as soon as it was possible to get out, Councilmember Brasco, Councilman Brizendine, and Hambrick, and Mayor Pro Tem LeBron went out in the cold. It was cold and icy out there. And they went out and distributed the other 600 door hangers. So I'll congratulate you till the day comes, because you all did the job and you all reached out and you worked. You also were there 3 times, and other citizens helped as well. But this staff worked night and day, 24/7, for 5 or 6 days during this issue. And it was an emergency, and people stepped up and did more than what would have ever been expected. Water distributed to citizens, there were 3 different times that we were attempting to obtain water. We had a supply initially, which citizens immediately were, where is the water? Well, we had a supply. It was distributed from Aqua that was on hand. That was distributed. We had another delivery 2 times, I believe, from our county, from Lon Shell, which we desperately needed. And we were waiting the promises of water coming from Aqua, Texas. Their trucks could not travel. We got water delivered from Arkansas, is what I understand. And when it came, Brenton, I'll let you take over there about the water amounts and the distribution and how that was handled.
Okay, so we did have probably 40 cases of water here that was a backup. And those were distributed within just a few minutes after we sent out the initial notice. So, and then with Commissioner Shell, he brought in another about 60 cases of water. The water, we were getting it from anywhere we could, any source, and also with Hays County, they were trying to split the cases or the amount of water between all the cities that they were receiving. I had talked, and the local representative operator, Jason's supervisor, actually asked me to quit calling him at 4 o'clock in the morning because he wanted to sleep a little bit, but I was already back up again, asking where the water was. And he knew that it was coming, but he did not know where from. And so as soon as he knew it was going to be here, He called me the night before, on Saturday night about the distribution. Told me he had 8 pallets of water that was coming in for Woodcreek, and that he would have it delivered to City Hall the next day. And that was coordinated so that as soon as the water did arrive, city staff sent out the email notice and also the text blast showing that we did have water on hand. And from about 11 o'clock till 5 o'clock, we had most council members up here. We had city staff members. We had Aqua Texas representatives distributing the water. So it was when everybody got the water that was needed. Of course, they would like to have running water at that time, but then the boil water notice actually was lifted. Was issued and was lifted on
The next day.
I lost track.
It was
Monday.
a full 24 hours
It was
after
full
that.
24 hours, because it takes 18 hours from the time the water's tested to make sure that it's okay to drink. And so since we got notice on lifting the boil water notice, I had been told an hour before that they would be issuing the statement to lift the boil water. Until that notice came out, the city actually could not issue that notice because we had to wait for the official notice from Aqua Texas. I know that everybody pitched in well. I was out looking for water line breaks also. After I got kind of caught up at City Hall, and the city staff was assisting Aqua all the way through it. So it was a very interesting time without the water.
Yeah.
And, it's like Jack Bowles was talking about. We have a lot of experience going through emergencies of this type that are in the city. And so we were lucky that people were there that we could also lean on and not just have to use staff experiences.
That's so true. So we have to remember, and unless do y'all want to make another comment? Otherwise, I'll just kind of make a comment and close. But would any of you all like to make another comment?
I would just like to make one comment, Mayor.
Sure.
My phone is about to die, and I have no electricity.
Right. We just got notice that the electricity is still out in that area of the city.
Yes, you still have no electricity.
And my phone is about to die, so if you need my vote to adjourn, I'm going to give it to you before it
No,
goes
you've
on.
got it. You're good. Thank you, and thank you so much for the battery pack. If you go off, we'll have to adjourn. I want to say something real quickly.
I'll stay
Don't
in
go
the
off.
left hand.
Don't go off yet. I just want to say real quickly that we're still in the battle with COVID. We still have to remember all of those lost in this country. I just wanted to absolutely say how much, we are all just our condolences and our concerns for all the losses, from COVID. And now from this winter storm, we've lost quite a few. So we are our hearts are just reaching out to all of those individuals that have had these losses. We're going forward, and we are going to look into, and we're going to review and investigate the underlying circumstances of these outages. And we will be meeting with Hays County in 2 weeks. We'll keep you all informed of that if you'd like to participate in an update and an assessment of the county and what happened. So I wanted you all to know about that. Judy, are you gone?
No, I'm still here.
Okay, we will adjourn unless someone else has another comment.
You might want to get Councilmember Risendine's charge pack back to her, Mayor.
She already got it back to me.
Well, I already did that, but I did not fill her dish with the return of the soup she sent. I don't send anything back empty. Thank you.
Yes, but it's not fully charged, so I didn't know how long it would give me.
Okay. Any other comments, anybody? Are we good? Any
I make
comments?
a motion, we adjourn.
Well, we don't need that, but we'll do it. Thank you. We're adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.